The anxieties about urbanization, about unlettered, untutored, relatively uneducated peoples coming in large numbers, the sense that disease was a problem, all of these worries were amalgamated into a belief that immigrants caused these problems, and thus immigration should be held down.
Many white Protestant Americans came to fear they were about to be outnumbered and outbred by the newcomers and their offspring, that they were being replaced. They embraced a new pseudoscience born in Britain called Eugenics, which falsely claimed, with no evidence, that everything from poverty to prostitution, disabilities to what they called feeble-mindedness, could be eliminated if the individuals they dismissed as socially defective could be stopped from reproducing.
I wish very much that the wrong people could be prevented entirely from breeding. And when the evil nature of these people is sufficiently flagrant, this should be done. Criminals should be sterilized, and feeble-minded persons forbidden to leave offspring behind them. Theodore Roosevelt.
The idea was that the bad people have to stop reproducing, and the good people need to reproduce more. Negative eugenics says sterilize the wrong people, snuff them out. And that's the eugenics that the Nazis would pick up on.
Colleges and universities taught eugenics. Medical societies confirmed it. Clergymen preached it. John D. Rockefeller and Andrew Carnegie funded it. And some of the most prominent people in America championed it. Margaret Sanger, Alexander Graham Bell, even Helen Keller.
It seems to me that the simplest, wisest thing to do would be to submit cases like that of the malformed idiot baby to a jury of expert physicians. If the evidence were presented openly and the decisions made public before the death of the child, there would be little danger of mistakes or abuses. We must decide between a fine humanity and a cowardly sentimentalism.
33 of the 48 states would eventually enact eugenics laws mandating the forced sterilization of wards of the state deemed physically or mentally unfit. People in prisons, hospitals, and asylums. More than 60,000 Americans would be sterilized without their consent before the last of these statutes was removed from the books in 2014.
As founder of the American Birth Control League, which later became Planned Parenthood, Margaret Sanger was no doubt a controversial figure with disturbing views on eugenics, race, and population control. While some argue she even wanted to exterminate the Black race, others are trying to erase that part of her past.
The Mike Wallace Interview.
In the eyes of some, Margaret Sanger has been a heroine. In the eyes of others, she's been a destructive force.
In her own words, Sanger pushed for a society that limited births to those she deemed fit to have children.
Well, I think the greatest sin in the world is bringing children into the world that have disease from their parents, that have no chance in the world to be a human being, practically. Delinquents, prisoners, all sorts of things just marked when they're born.
In 1916, Sanger opened the country's first birth control clinic. As a member of the American Eugenics Society, she advocated improving the genetic composition of humans through controlled reproduction of different races and classes. She often wrote about the issue in the journal she founded, called the Birth Control Review. In 1919, writing,
I personally believe in the sterilization of the feeble-minded, the insane, and the syphilitic. The most urgent problem today is how to limit and discourage the over-fertility of the mentally and physically defective.
Many point to a 1923 New York Times interview as proof of Sanger's racist motives, in which she referred to people as weeds, saying,
It means the release and cultivation of the better racial elements in our society and the gradual suppression, elimination, and eventual extirpation of defective stocks, those human weeds which threaten the blooming of the finest flowers of American civilization.
Hayden Ludwig, an investigative researcher, has extensively studied Sanger's life and writings.
She talked about the need for race betterment through controlling these weeds, basically undesirable people.
In 1939, after opening another clinic in Harlem, the birth control activist launched the Negro Project, an initiative supported by black leaders, such as civil rights activist W.E.B. Du Bois. Critics claim the program used the pretense of better health and family planning for poor blacks in the South as an attempt to limit the black race. Ludwig says some on the left grapple with Sanger's past and how to interpret her legacy.
They know when she writes about human weeds, they know that it's repulsive. They know it's disgusting. The left will never abandon Margaret Sanger because if they do, she's the foundation of so many of their views.
Sanger once shared her vision for a preferred race at a women's branch of the Ku Klux Klan, writing in her autobiography,
"Always, to me, any aroused group was a good group."
Despite those views, liberals praise Sanger's work while ignoring her history.
I admire Margaret Sanger enormously. Her courage, her tenacity, her vision. I am really in awe of her.
Ryan Baumberger, founder of the Radiance Foundation, says abortion proponents are working to clean up Sanger's past and what she stood for.
They have to reinvent her every time they talk about her in order to justify their celebration of her.
Former Planned Parenthood Director Abby Johnson says those inside the abortion industry are trained to overlook Sanger's racist views.
They give you an answer like, well, I mean, yes, Margaret Sanger was a racist, but everybody was a racist back then. You accept it because she is your hero. And she has to be your hero. You cannot question Planned Parenthood.
In 1997, Stephen Mosher of the Population Research Institute wrote about the push to repackage Margaret Sanger in the Wall Street Journal.
The reason I call it the repackaging of Margaret Sanger is because after the Nazi regime destroyed the legitimacy of eugenics forever, they then went back and said, oh, she was just an early feminist. She was just an early supporter of family planning. No, she wasn't. No, she was a supporter of giving IQ tests to people. She was in favor of using those IQ tests to determine who should be sterilized and who should have children.
In a response titled The Demonization of Margaret Sanger, Alexander Sanger, her grandson and president of Planned Parenthood at the time, called Mosher's editorial unfair. In the same piece, Esther Katz, director of NYU's Margaret Sanger Papers Project, claimed evidence revealing Sanger did not rationalize her support for birth control on racist grounds, that she never advocated genocidal policies aimed at racial, ethnic, or religious groups, and that she, in fact, believed access to birth control would benefit, not eliminate minority populations. Dr. Katz turned down our request for an interview, although in this article, the editor as public authority interpreting Margaret Sanger, she wrote, by our current highly sensitized standards, some of her attitudes and statements can be construed as racist, elitist, ethnocentric, and not politically correct. In 1942, Margaret Sanger's American Birth Control League became Planned Parenthood, which has moved to fulfill its founders' goals, helped greatly by the Supreme Court decision in Roe v. Wade.
Under the veil of secrecy and deception, 60+ million babies have not been born because they were aborted legally since '73. 1/3 of that population belong to the African American community.
A frightening and telling number given blacks make up only 13% of the U.S. population. Dan Gaynor of the Media Research Center says that Sanger's true mission remains alive and well throughout today's abortion industry.
Look at the maps. see where the abortion facilities are. They are near places where people are marginalized, people are poor, people are minority, and that's their target market.
Generation after generation, we have built a better world for our daughters.
Because of allies in the media and academia, Gaynor also points out how speech from conservatives and others about Sanger's past, Planned Parenthood practices, and abortion is often classified as hate speech.
There is nothing as close to a sacrament in the media as abortion. It is a holy writ that abortion is protected. And anybody who comes out against it, any organization, any business, anybody, the media swarm.
So does social media.
Facebook's new oversight board, and this is really concerning, has 4 co-chairs. And they're going to be the appeals board for content. Well, one of the 4 oversight board is on the board of an pro-abortion group. There's no pro-lifers. They're not there.
The problem also exists on many college campuses.
I remember at Harvard, they laughed when I was talking about the history of eugenics. And they said, that doesn't matter. Planned Parenthood is not like it was during Margaret Sanger's days.
Those who oppose her views say not true and are committed to exposing her past for future generations. Charlene Aaron, CBN News.
And the radical left and the disciples of the 1619 Project and BLM Incorporated teamed up to attack Planned Parenthood in the summer of 2020. Highly hilarious. So these were not pro-lifers attacking Planned Parenthood. We've been doing that for over 100 years. These were pro-abortion, cultural Marxist, radical leftists attacking Planned Parenthood in July of 2020. And they said, your founder was a racist. And so then they took her name off of their Manhattan, New York City Planned Parenthood clinic. And New York City took Margaret Sanger's name off of the Margaret Sanger Square, which led me to ask a question. If you've lied to us about your patron saint, what else are you lying to us about? And what's the history behind Planned Parenthood and the sexual revolution that caused you to suddenly cancel a woman whose name you had given awards in to Hillary Clinton and Nancy Pelosi? We expose that all in my book and film by going back to 1916 when Margaret Sanger, the founder of Planned Parenthood, opened her very first clinic.
Well, what do you believe many black Americans don't understand or they misunderstand about abortion and Margaret Sanger and racism?
Well, Margaret Sanger launched the Negro Project in 1939. It was an initiative of Planned Parenthood, and the opening proposal said, okay, this is her words, said, the mass of Negroes, particularly in the South, are still breeding carelessly and disastrously, with the result that the increase among Negroes, even more than among whites, is from that portion of the population least intelligent and fit, end quote. And then she hired sort of Negro Project directors to go propagandize birth control in black enclaves to get them to stop having kids. So where did Margaret Sanger focus her efforts on propagandizing birth control? In black communities, in minority communities. And so what I think many black Americans don't understand today is that abortion is never a tool of empowerment or freedom for anyone, certainly not for those that the left has disproportionately targeted to decrease their population numbers. Today, black women of childbearing age are about 4% of American population, but they obtain almost 40% of the nation's abortions, fulfilling Margaret Sanger's dreams. They're trying to eradicate you and kill you in the name of racism and eugenics, but they call it healthcare and female empowerment and feminism. And we're exposing all of what this rotten agenda is and where it comes from in the 1916 Project film, which released October 22nd on our Twitter X account, online for free.
When Margaret Sanger, check my history, started Planned Parenthood, the objective was to put these centers in primarily black communities so they could help kill black babies before they came into the world. You don't see that talked that much about. It's Planned Parenthood. No, it's planned genocide. And you can quote me on that.
You know that 78% of abortion clinics are in minority areas? Did you know that African Americans, who make up 12% of the population, make up 35% of all abortions in this country? Did you know that on the average, 1,876 African American babies are aborted every single day. I urge my friends and colleagues in the African American community to be very, very careful about this legislation, because we're talking about African American genocide. You hear me? Okay. But for Roe v. Wade, the African American community would be 36% larger than it currently is today. Did you know that? White women, they have, out of every 1,000 births, 138 abortions. Do you know how many abortions are had by black women out of every 1,000? 501. So we need our communities to come together and to band together and to make sure that we have the resources and the ability to take care of these babies. And we need to give women choices, real choices, so that they can bring babies to term and that they can have a life for these children and raise these children in our communities.
Mr. Margaret Sanger, Planned Parenthood. The most merciful thing that a family does to one of its infant members is to kill it. Birth control must lead ultimately to a cleaner race. Ah, there we go. We have racism here. Cleaner race. What does she mean by that? We should hire 3 or 4 colored ministers, preferably with social service backgrounds and with engaging personalities. The most successful educational approach to the Negro is through a religious appeal. We don't want the word to go out that we want to exterminate the Negro population. And the minister is the man who can straighten out that idea if it ever occurs to any of their more rebellious members.
Do you believe in sin? When I say believe, I don't mean in believe in committing sin. Do you believe there is such a thing as sin?
Well, I think the greatest sin in the world is bringing children into the world that have disease from their parents, that have no chance in the world to be a human being, practically. Delinquents, prisoners, all sorts of things just marked when they're born. That, to me, is the greatest sin that people can commit.
But sin in the ordinary sense that we regard it, do you believe or do you not believe?
Well, what would they be?
Do you believe that infidelity is a sin?
Well, I'm not going to specify what I think is sin. I've stated what I think is the worst sin.
Yes, but then you asked me to say what, and I said what, and you refused to answer me?
Yes, I don't know about infidelity. It has so many personalities to it, and what a person's own belief is. I couldn't generalize any of those things.
Consider the perversity of that. This is one of the great heroes of the American left. And really, consider the great hero of Planned Parenthood. She says that the worst sin in the world is letting people live. The worst sin in the world is not killing people. And then the interviewer, Mike Wallace, says, what about all the sins that we consider sins? Violating the 10 Commandments, that sort of thing. Adultery. She goes, well, I don't know about that. I can't talk about adultery. Well, of course not. Because if for this woman, the highest virtue is killing people, I suppose the highest virtue for her would be consent to do all of these terrible things. She is offering, truly a satanic vision of the world, saying that the worst thing you can do is let human beings live. But that is a moral vision. We need to oppose that with an opposite moral vision.
Personally, I have not been able to work with Kamala Harris. However, I have paid attention to her campaign because she's come to Georgia quite a bit. Mm-hmm. And what I've noticed is that every time she came to Georgia or when she went to a HBCU, mm-hmm. the tour was basically being led on women's rights and reproductive rights. Mm-hmm. And to me, that was very offensive because, for one, Roe v. Wade had already been overturned. So mm-hmm. it wasn't even on the ballot, if we're going to be completely honest. So it was just a way to play on the emotions of black women. And then also it was the fact that you're voting for women's rights, but you got to be born to become a woman, right? And these type of rights actually execute the women of tomorrow. So it's like all of the women that thought that they were voting for black life were actually the carriers of black life, right? Voting for a right to terminate black life. So it was a very offensive campaign to me, even all the way down to the DNC. And I think that's what sealed it in the coffin to me, because they went to the DNC, and I call it an abortions Hot Wheel bus, right? Because they had a bus where they were performing live abortions on the scene.
Today, Planned Parenthood offered some of its services in a mobile clinic near the United Center. It was one of 7 locations in the city and suburbs opened during the DNC. The group providing free vasectomies, medication abortions, and emergency contraception. Yesterday and today, that van was parked just a few blocks from the UC. A spokesperson says one goal is to help people who are here from states where access to those services may be limited.
And we're just really excited to provide the opportunity for the thousands of folks who are coming to Illinois to demonstrate for them that, it is possible to start closing some healthcare gaps for folks.
Planned Parenthood says it served between 20 and 30 patients over the last 2 days. The mobile unit is not connected to the convention.
Planned Parenthood Mobile Clinic, they have set one up just outside the United Center, and they won't just be handing out T-shirts and bumper stickers. They're actually going to be offering free abortion medication, inflatable IUDs, and vasectomies. News Nation's Kelsey Kernstein joining us live outside the United Center with more on this. The pro-life groups, Kelsey, they're pretty outraged by this show from Planned Parenthood outside.
Hey there, Marnie. Good morning. Yeah, I've spoken to some of these pro-life groups. They tell me they're absolutely furious that Planned Parenthood would have a mobile clinic here during the DNC. Now, right now, I'm in the Union Park area. This is where protesters are going to be in just the next couple of hours. I can see them setting up. But it's interesting. I've gotten on the Planned Parenthood website. I cannot find an address for this mobile clinic. And also, all of the appointments have already been booked up. Now, I do want to go ahead and show you this. So Planned Parenthood Great Rivers, which is based in Missouri, where abortions are banned, writing on X, saying, "Here we come, Chicago. Our mobile clinic will be in the West Loop on August 19th and 20th. Now, this is a neighborhood just minutes from the Democratic National Convention where it's taking place. Going on to read that they will provide free vasectomies and abortion medication. Now, emergency contraception will also be available for free without an appointment. Also, reportedly, Planned Parenthood has said that the mobile clinic demonstrates when states like Illinois work to support rather than restrict access to affordable care. The organization is also hoping to help those patients from surrounding states like, say, Iowa, to help get an abortion where it's been restricted. Marnie?
What's been the response from both sides, really, to this mobile clinic, Kelsey?
Well, the pro-life group really saying that this is demonic that the mobile clinic would be here.
Me, because I'm spiritual and I done studied all the religions and I know about Moloch and Moloch worship, I'm saying to myself, you mean to tell me that these people actually performing human sacrifices at the DNC to win the election? And I was like, God is not going to stand for this. But everybody you saw getting off that bus was a black woman.
Turning one's back on the Lord of life ultimately entails embracing the culture of death. A few words about the specifics of Moloch worship. This is going to be very important to what I'm going to want to say about the contemporary abortion landscape. The giant brass statue of the god with his hands out in front of him, cast in a human shape with a bull's head, outstretched hands, a fire was kindled in his belly, which heated the whole statue to be scalding hot. Parents were required to offer up their babies on his hands and to gaze upon what happened to the baby without, and this is key, without tears and without signs of protest. This rejection of any signs of protest was essential. Moloch's votaries would play their drums and flutes really loudly to drown out the tortured cries of the babies, helping the parents to look upon it without breaking down. This seems to me to have an immediate contemporary relevance. In Moloch worship of our day, those who won't allow pro-life to speak or to protest are acting in accordance with the dictates of Moloch worship, which will not allow protest, which must be silently acceded to, agreed to, condoned, accepted, rejoiced in.
The magazine First Things published 2 years ago a statement by Catholics and Protestants on life issues. And I want to read you one short section about demons. The blindness of so many to this moral atrocity has many sources, but is finally to be traced to the seductive ways of evil advanced by Satan. Jesus says he was a murderer from the beginning and has nothing to do with the truth because there is no truth in him. When he lies, he speaks according to his own nature, for he is a liar and the father of lies. I think that's exactly right. Which means that the sacrifice of our sons and our daughters today is in a very true and a profound sense a sacrifice to demons, to Satan. The religious part has gone because this is a secular Western world. And of course, Satan doesn't want abortion to be laughed at, so of course he's not going to make it a religious ritual. He wants me to be laughed at so that he gets the upper hand when I say it's to demons. And people smirk. That's what Satan wants. He's real happy for the secular world not to believe in him. Real happy. As long as they just keep sacrificing their children to him.
When you talk about downtown Chicago, what's the demographic? So why are we sending abortion Hot Wheel buses to the hood?
Wait, what's this really
but
going
we're
on,
not taking them to
Andrew,
the
you
border.
making this up? Because
Now
this don't
you
even
know.
sound
Now you
believable.
know.
Because we didn't see it
Now
on
you
news.
know I ain't gonna say nothing that can't be fact checked.
Okay.
Now you know everything I say can be fact checked, and anybody can get on the computer
So
and
why
research this
didn't-
right
why
now.
didn't they put that on the in media like they always put everything
I'm
on?
not sure. It depends on what type of media that you're watching. Of course, we know that a lot of these mainstream media news outlets have been complicit, right, with being biased. But then you got, social media. And that's why social media is kind of like a gift and a curse. But it was all over social media, live footage, and that's why we got some people in Congress fighting so hard to ban TikTok and censor some of these other platforms.
Exactly.
Because you got the American people stepping up and telling the truth about what's really happening and exposing what's going on behind the scenes. So the fact that they had an abortion Hot Wheels bus in the hood in Chicago, they got all these abortion clinics in the hood in black communities, but they ain't got no abortion clinics at the border. They ain't sending no abortion bus down there to service them women coming across the border. They ain't got them abortion clinics in the wealthy white neighborhoods.
Come on.
I said, hold on, wait a minute. I said, I'd rather work for someone who wants to make America healthy again, right? Like
Facts.
Robert F. Kennedy.
Fact. Kennedy.
Instead of aligning myself, and the black card was always in question.
Yeah.
Because I'm just finna get on some RNS right now. Y'all know what RNS
on.
is?
Yeah.
What's
The
RNS?
realest.
Real nigga shit.
Yeah.
I'm just finna get on some RNS right now. Like,
I'm here for it.
You can't give me the black card if you married to a white man and you raising white children. Because it's hard for me to believe that like everybody is pro black life until it's time to marry and procreate. Well, like, what's the essence of black life? Creating black life, right? So not only that, but you also are on an HBCU tour, right? Telling childbearing age young black women to, they have a right to abort, okay? While you don't have any children yourself, but you're raising your husband's 2 white children, right? And why didn't they take that reproductive rights tour to Yale or Dartmouth? Like, why didn't that message go to the predominantly white colleges?
So what do you think it is? You think it's to control the black population?
Of course, it's a replacement plan.
Yeah.
Because if you look at it, and if we're just going to be 1,000, and this is why I'm so excited to be working on Make America Healthy Again with Robert F. Kennedy.
Okay.
Those of us that's 40, right? Like, if you think about it, the lifespan expectancy of man is, 80? So what? We done lived half our life. It's downhill for us. So in the next 40 years, we on our way out. So what's coming behind us? The children, the next generation. So if we're boarding them, okay? If we have agendas like LGBTQ plus, children, things that sterilize children, give them puberty blockers and stuff, and they're not reproducing, okay? And then we've removed the majority of the black men from the home because they in prison, right? Or homeless, not because of mental health or not worth, and then we got a high population of black men that no longer even want black women. And then we also got a high population of black men that believe they're black women.
Dang.
So in 40 years, and then this is another question that I have for our community when we gonna just be 100.
That's right.
If we look up research, we know that AIDS has been the #1 killer of black men. Anybody can look this up, right? When it comes to medical apartheid, just like all of this other stuff, COVID, whatever. If AIDS is the #1 killer of black men, why are we as a community allowing that to be pushed on our children? It's almost like, just pressing the button for self-destruction. And in this election, you have the nerve to have black women putting up all of these posts. I saw one so disgusting the other day. Black man, the next time a cop have his knee on your neck, don't call black women. Right?
Oh my God.
But these are the same black women. You like the black babies that you aborting, them little black boys, they gotta grow up to be black men. The same boys that you're voting to chemically castrate and turn into little girls, like they're the black men. Y'all don't care about black men. Y'all don't even care about black life. All you care about is power and control and feminism, and that's I can't stand with that because it has completely destroyed our families. We're voting to abort our bloodlines. I said, look, like we need to come together. We need to show that we're united, because at the end of the day, when we done fighting over political party, none of us really just want to be out here voting to abort our kids, right? Every abortion should be a tragedy. You know what I'm saying? I know damn well we not just voting because 7 white men, because they always talking about, oh, white men want to control our bodies. Well, the 7 white men that ruled to make Roe v. Wade legal, right? They gave you permission to kill your baby and get away with it. Because the daddy can't do it, right? And you got all of these women. And 1 minute they don't want y'all to have nothing, you can't say nothing or none of that, right? But the next minute they want to fight for equality. So if the mother don't want the baby, even if you want it, right? She get to go kill the baby, get a pat on the back, get congratulated. They even pay for it. Give her a free ride to the clinic, okay? But if the daddy don't want the baby, nigga, you going to jail every 30 days on a child abandonment warrant. They suspending your driver's license. You're gonna be made to take care of that child. The government is gonna make you be responsible for the life that you created. But for some reason, we want to give black women, and black women are not even the creators of black life.
We're here in New York City asking people their thoughts on abortion.
Do you know who you're interviewing?
Sorry, no. Please do tell
I'm
me.
Alexander Sanger. I'm the former president of Planned Parenthood of New York. My grandmother is Margaret Sanger, who founded Planned Parenthood. You cannot make abortion go away by criminalizing it. All you do is you make it unsafe. You put women at risk, poor women, women of color, women that don't have the advantages of middle class, wealthy women to travel somewhere and get an abortion. It's discriminatory, it's unfair, it's unsafe, and to me, it's just a total outrage against women.
It's a woman's choice.
Yes.
Satanists in the United States are pushing to overturn pro-life laws there so they can enact what they call their religious abortion ritual. Speaking to The Guardian, the Satanic Temple's co-founder, Lucien Greaves, attempted to justify legal action against abortion laws in Texas, Indiana, Idaho, and Missouri. Greaves claimed that as a minority religion, the states are preventing the temple's members from practicing their beliefs. During the ritual, the mother views her reflection before taking deep breaths and reciting 2 of the temple's tenets. Speaking of its legal action, Greaves stated, "We have to play the long game."
The Satanic Temple says they have a strategy for women to access the abortion drug, take it as part of a religious expression. Its founder describes them as a non-theistic religious group.
By non-theistic, we mean we don't worship a literal deity. We view Satan as a metaphorical construct, as the ultimate rebel against tyranny.
This group is not the Church of Satan, an organization they're often mixed up with. Greaves says they promote social justice, equality, and the separation of church and state. Their latest involvement is now with the state of Texas. They call the latest heartbeat bill draconian. The bill bans abortions at 6 weeks.
For personhood to be achieved and for those protections to be in effect, there needs to be some type of higher cognitive function. We really feel that the freedom of choice is something that belongs to our religious membership, and they should be able to, on religious liberty grounds, maintain it.
They recently sent a letter to the FDA asking the church be allowed access to the abortion-inducing drug for its rituals, and they're working on filing a lawsuit.
we've encountered one argument of, well, abortions are not religious. Well, that's not necessarily the case. The question of whether something is religious or not is up to the person who's bringing the lawsuit.
TST believes bodily autonomy and science are of utmost importance, and the abortion ritual is just an expression of that belief, and the heartbeat bill violates their religious freedom.
By regulating the context in which the ritual happens, you're necessarily regulating the ritual itself. It's necessarily that's what's happening. If I say nobody can buy wine, well, that's affecting the Catholic's ability to do Mass.
We're gonna do this now. Just take a right, we're gonna do a drive-by again. 100 people are coming down the sidewalk to protest. Okay, everybody remember that we do not engage. I would say that we employ radical political theater to draw attention to the absurdity of the pro-life movement.
The Satanic Temple is an activist organization of self-identified Satanists, founded in 2013 as a reaction to the increasing influence of the religious right in American politics.
We're so used to the theocratic agenda being pushed forward in bills and legislation. It's become a fact of life in the American culture right now.
We empower women to be creative about protecting their own freedoms and access to reproductive health.
In 2015, the group filed a lawsuit seeking exemption from recently introduced abortion laws in Missouri on the grounds of religious freedom. Through the suit, they are appropriating the tactics of the religious right to advance their cause.
If we're asking for religious rights for all, then we need to actually understand what that means. That means religious rights for Satanists as well.
We're in a parking lot behind the Planned Parenthood location. Apparently, tons of protesters just showed up, and when we were driving by, we saw so many people with signs, and there was some sort of like bishop with a ceremonial awning over him. So we're gonna head in, and it seems like people are kind of nervous that this is gonna be a little bit extreme.
I think that our actions are extreme and do put us in a position of confrontation.
Oh my God, babies!
There's no way that we can come there and have a logical discussion or argument, and so we don't want to give them credit for this absurdity.
I think that they're doing what they're doing is for attention, and I think they're trying to upset us and hurt us. The satire that I saw them using today is the same stuff that I've seen at the National Holocaust Museum that the Nazis used against the Jews. And I think that they're trying to hurt God ultimately.
The meaning is a little bit lost on us. We're talking about the abstraction and fetishization of the fetal image as one that speaks and diminishes women's power and voice.
And when we disorder our rights, life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness, and some people's liberty goes before someone else's life, or someone's pursuit of happiness goes before someone else's liberty, bad, terrible things happen that result in slavery, subjugation, and death.
So if I came up with my own religion,
Ooh,
that
triggered.
is satanic, I was satanic, I
Yep.
believe, and I
Yep,
am.
that's right.
I'm a practicing pagan.
Yep.
I believe that I can do whatever I want.
Yep.
And I have the right to an abortion in my religion, and
Yep.
it's completely
So in many
discreet.
states that have restrictive laws against abortion, the Temple of Satan is officially suing and asking for injunctions stating that laws that prevent abortion prohibit Satanists from practicing their religion, and meaning that because they believe a woman should be able to sacrifice a child to abortion as part of their religious practice. So do you agree with the Church of Satan?
I believe that, yeah, Church of Satan should be able to do whatever they want. It's a religion, religious freedom. I mean, I believe we're in a free country. I believe in religious freedom.
Well, I mean, hey, you're the one who just had to agree to agree with the Church of Satan.
I
So
mean, I believe we're in a free country, and
Yeah.
we're in America. God
Yeah.
bless America. We're in a free country. We should
Wait,
all be.
God bless, I think you're a pagan.
I'm just saying what you guys would say. God bless America, right?
Well, isn't God
You're
is bless
Christian. I'm
America?
putting myself in your position. God is the main religion in America, correct? Correct.
Well, that God
Christianity
isn't religion.
Christianity is the main practicing religion in the United States, correct?
Yes.
Yes. So I am saying in my opinion, and
Yeah.
I feel like, I mean, it's a free
I just
country
think
that
that's-
we should be able to choose
Mm-hmm.
whether or not we agree with abortion and not abortion. Otherwise,
Mm-hmm.
it is not a free country. And I feel like that's very understandable. I mean, if we're
I think it's very understandable to say that we in our free country, there are limits to our freedoms. There are limits to all of our freedoms.
Of course, yeah.
There's always limits to our freedom. There's no absolute right to bodily
100%.
autonomy, right? Would you agree with me with
yes,
that?
I do agree.
Yeah, so there are limits to our freedoms, and one of those limits should be killing innocent other human beings. And we, as Americans who agree to live in this society, uniformly say we can't go around killing innocent others. That is bad. Regardless of what our religious beliefs are, that's one of the fundamental, that's like natural law principles of our society.
I mean, I'm just going with free country. I feel like we all should have our choices.
Yeah, but it's
and I'm
not
here-
a free country to choose to end the life of an innocent other human being.
But
We
it
don't
is. It is. I mean, we all
Can
should
you
get our
kill
own
me?
choices. You're
Can
not.
you
You're
kill
not
me?
an embryo. You're not an embryo.
That is, see,
You're a
thank you.
living human being, and so is the embryo. Yeah, it's alive. I don't care. It's not. I don't want it there. I am not ready to financially support a baby.
I just want to read you this poster that I have because I hear a lot of pro-lifers say that life begins at conception. So my poster reads, "Life begins when you understand living women matter more than potential babies."
What is it?
What do you mean?
If it's a potential baby, what is inside of a woman?
It's a fetus.
Is it living?
No.
How can it grow if it's not living?
Actually, that's like saying if an acorn is a tree.
When does the fetus become living?
That's actually a good question, but that line.
Yeah, of course, because you don't know it. Because it's living. It's living.
How about you let her speak?
You're fundamentally denying science to validate your opinion.
You actively deny science, ma'am.
How am I denying? What science did I deny, Darby?
Okay, so let's look at some posters over here. But you don't have to be here.
I need you to tell me what science. You just made an accusation that I denied science. What science did I deny?
That it's a child inside of you. It is a clump of cells when
I'm a clump of cells. What makes me different?
That you were born. You were born.
So you don't. What you're arguing is that anything that is not born is not valuable of life.
I did not say that.
It's subjective. So when does a child or fetus or clump of cells, whatever you want to call it, when does this clump of cells or fetus become living?
When it can sustain its own life.
But when is the sustainability? No, when is sustainability?
21.
About like 30 weeks to born, like 24, 30.
Because how do you sustain life? Like my newborns aren't sustainable. You can't just have a newborn and they just live on their own, right?
Right.
They're not sustainable. They need help and assistance to survive. So is a newborn not worthy of life? Is a newborn not worthy of life?
I do have one thing to say to you. How is it that when my mom was in college 30 years ago, she was protesting the exact same thing that me and these wonderful other women and men on this side have been protesting? How is it? Why are we still protesting? Why are we still having to talk about this issue? It is a basic human right to have an abortion, to have a choice.
The reason we're still having the question is because some people don't want to accept the natural consequences of heterosexual sex and be inconvenienced by another human life and want to selfishly choose to end human life in order to have their whims met. That is why you're still arguing.
I have a personal question for you. Are your beliefs about abortion and life and conception, does that have anything to do with your personal religious beliefs? Your belief that life begins at conception, that is not shared by a lot of people. It's not shared by me. It's not shared by any of my friends. So I'm asking you, why should your moral belief be the end all be all and make the law and take away the right to a clean, safe abortion for women to have? And the fact that you can sit here and say that the rapist baby, the seed, or whatever you want to call it, the baby that's still in your belly and that it's not born yet, that you should be forced to have that, it's disgusting. And the fact that you can come over here and have an entire career based off of this, and I'm not done speaking, and then you can sit here in front of my friend who was a victim of rape and say that she should have that baby, it's disgusting.
So again, to play this out, again, how did it happen though?
Oh, it was against their will.
Oh, really? So rape?
Sure.
Okay, so that's only less than 1% of all abortions. So the thought experiment doesn't apply to the other 99% of abortions where it's consensual sex. Do you agree?
Okay.
Having children is a serious choice. So what percentage of abortions, according to the Guttmacher Institute, are not rape, not incest, and not life of the mother? What percentage would you say?
Probably the vast majority.
97%.
Yeah.
So is abortion now birth control, yes or no?
No, I don't think so.
I think it can be an act without doing anything morally wrong. Does that make sense? And at this point, I think we just
Okay, yeah, I mean, being a jerk and being evil are two different things. I would agree. But terminating a baby is not being a jerk.
Fetus.
So what does fetus mean in Latin?
I don't speak Latin.
Yeah, little human. So the little human. What
does it mean in English?
What does fetus mean in?
What does it mean in English?
Yeah, little human.
Unborn baby.
Right. So the reason people use fetus because it makes themselves feel good.
Okay.
Because they don't want to use the word baby because they want to try to cloak the horror of abortion. So they say, oh, it's a fetus, as if it's like a rhinoceros or if it's like a giraffe. No, it's the same species as a human. It's just not as big as you are or as advanced as you are. So it feels better to be able to terminate that being. But I could see you're coming after this in a good way. If I were to ask you a question, should we try to limit suffering on Earth?
Obviously.
Okay. So if I tell you that the majority of abortions that occur, the baby feels pain, should we probably stop doing that?
Well, it's not that simple, obviously. You're making it simple, because obviously giving birth causes a lot of pain too, and if you try to...
No, I'm making the complex simple, because it's actually not that complex. Okay. Here's what college does, is it makes the very simple moral questions so complex that you have to keep on borrowing money you don't have, to keep on getting these degrees, to overthink good and evil, that somebody on the side of the street can easily say murder is wrong.
More than 80% of the people getting abortions in Minnesota are unmarried.
The data also shows a majority, well over half, are in their 20s and first trimester, or up to 12 weeks. The professor also noting most people getting abortions are at or near the poverty line, making less than $26,000 a year. MDH data shows economics and not wanting more children are top reasons people reported getting an abortion.
With the right of Americans to receive an abortion now at risk, we take a closer look at who is actually getting abortions in this country, and the stats may surprise you. According to the most recent data collected, one number the CDC reports is that more than half of abortions here in the United States, more than half, are women in their 20s. ABC News senior national policy reporter Ann Flaherty joins me now. She has been tracking the data, pulling some of the more interesting stats and numbers, and help us understand these numbers and also the demographic of people seeking abortion. What stands out to you?
Well, as you said, Kira, it might be a little bit surprising. I know that people have in their head who they envision would be getting an abortion, but the CDC tracks this data. It's not as up to date as we would like. It's back from 2019, but this is the best national snapshot that we have at this point. So they found that the majority of women are in their 20s, as you mentioned. 85% of them are unmarried. As a population, Black women are more likely to have abortions at a rate of 1,000. So that rate would be 24 abortions per 1,000 women compared to white women. It's about 7 abortions per 1,000 women.
And then you can sit here in front of my friend who was a victim of rape and say that she should have that baby? It's disgusting.
How can you be pro-life but force a rape victim to have her rapist baby?
If you were raped and you got pregnant,
this mother was homeless.
Behind every photo of a mom and her child hanging on these walls,
this mother here was running away from the baby's father. He was abusive.
Lies a painful backstory which led them to Patty Johnson.
Now I know somebody's needing help somewhere. They're just everywhere. It's just a lot.
She owns the nonprofit Shining Light Homes, securing basic necessities for young Virginia mothers with no support for their babies in these 4 areas.
You need a car, you need a place to live, you need a job, and you need childcare.
Needs that are so great, Johnson's office constantly receives calls for help. In fact, she even answered one during our brief interview.
That's another mom that's pregnant and homeless.
But Johnson's passion to give back stems from her own personal struggles with motherhood.
I got pregnant when I was 16.
A disappointment to her parents.
And I could have aborted her, maybe.
But she didn't. Johnson moved out, ending up in foster care, then bouncing from home to home before eventually finding her footing and taking care of the one child she'd ever have.
I would never change one thing about my life raising her. Never.
It was also around that time Johnson discovered the truth of how she was conceived.
My mother let me know that the father that I had known to be my father was not my father. And and then she proceeded to tell me, that she had been raped.
The emotions she felt then now come flooding back following the Supreme Court's overturn of Roe versus Wade.
I was like, wow.
The ruling gives states the authority to ban abortions for the first time since 1973. That's how it was when Johnson's mother was pregnant from rape, although women still sought illegal procedures.
I view my mother as a hero.
For bringing Johnson into this world, despite the circumstances.
Everybody uses the term rape. Like, who's going to want to keep the baby? Who's going to want to keep the baby from a rape? Thank you, Mom, I think to myself right now. I was meant to be born. No matter how it happened, I was meant to be born.
And meant to help other moms. She says that's a pledge she made to her own mother just before she passed.
Because she didn't feel like she had the support in her time. And, between me, I wanted to show her and let her know I was going to help her. That's how it happened. Yeah. I told her that I was going to do it.
My name is Dr. Anthony Levatino. I'm a practicing obstetrician gynecologist, and I performed over 1,200 abortions. First, I'm going to describe a first trimester medical abortion. This is a procedure in which the mother swallows pills in order to terminate her baby, and it is performed up to the 9th week of pregnancy. The procedure involves 2 steps. Step 1. At the abortion clinic or doctor's office, the woman takes pills which contain mifepristone, also called RU46. RU46 blocks the action of a hormone called progesterone. Progesterone is naturally produced in the mother's body to stabilize the lining of the uterus. When RU46 blocks progesterone, the lining of the mother's uterus breaks down, cutting off blood and nourishment to the baby, who then dies inside the mother's womb. It is important to note that even after it has been taken, it is possible to reverse the effects of RU46 and save the baby if progesterone is administered. The sooner, the better. Step 2. 24 to 48 hours after taking RU46, the woman takes misoprostol, also called Cytotec, that is administered either orally or vaginally. RU46 and misoprostol together cause severe cramping, contractions, and often heavy bleeding to force the dead baby out of the woman's uterus. The process can be very intense and painful, and the bleeding and contractions can last from a few hours to several days. While she could lose her baby anytime and anywhere during this process, the woman will often sit on a toilet as she prepares to expel the child, which she will then flush. She may even see her dead baby within the pregnancy sac. At 9 weeks, for example, the baby will be almost an inch long, and if she looks carefully, she might be able to count the fingers and toes. After she has disposed of her baby, the woman may have bleeding and spotting for several weeks. Bleeding lasts, on average, 9 to 16 days. 8% of women bleed more than 30 days, and 1% require hospitalization because of heavy bleeding. RU46 is only FDA approved for the first 7 weeks of pregnancy. If failure occurs, she will usually be offered a surgical abortion. For the mother, medical abortion often causes abdominal pain, nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, headache, and heavy bleeding. Maternal deaths have occurred, most frequently due to infection and undiagnosed ectopic pregnancy. First trimester surgical abortion called suction DNC, dilatation and curettage. This is the most frequently performed abortion and is used typically from 5 to 13 weeks of pregnancy. After administering anesthesia, the abortionist uses a speculum like this. This is placed inside the vagina and opened using this screw on the side, allowing the abortionist to see the cervix, the entrance to the uterus. The cervix acts as a gate that stays closed for the duration of pregnancy, protecting the baby until it is ready for birth. The abortionist uses a series of metal rods called dilators, like these, which increase in thickness, and inserts them into the cervix to dilate it, gaining access to the inside of the uterus where the baby resides. The baby has a heartbeat, fingers, toes, arms, and legs, but its bones are still weak and fragile. The abortionist takes a suction catheter like this one. This is a 14 French suction catheter. It's clear plastic, about 9 inches long, and it has a hole through the center. It is inserted through the cervix into the uterus. The suction machine is then turned on with a force 10 to 20 times more powerful than your household vacuum cleaner. The baby is rapidly torn apart by the force of the suction and squeezed through this tubing down into the suction machine, followed by the placenta. Though the uterus is mostly emptied at this point, one of the risks of a suction DNC is incomplete abortion. Essentially, pieces of the baby or placenta left behind. This can lead to infection or bleeding. In an attempt to prevent this, the abortionist uses a curette to scrape the lining of the uterus. A curette is basically a long-handled curved blade. Once the uterus is empty, the speculum is removed and the abortion is complete. The risks of suction DNC include perforation or laceration of the uterus or cervix, potentially damaging intestine, bladder, and nearby blood vessels, hemorrhage, infection, and in rare instances, even death. Future pregnancies are also at a greater risk for loss or premature delivery due to abortion-related trauma and injury to the cervix. Second trimester surgical abortion called dilatation and evacuation, or D&E. A D&E is performed between 13 and 24 weeks of pregnancy. After administering anesthesia, the abortionist uses a weighted speculum, like this one, that opens the vagina widely. Because second trimester babies are so large, this greater access facilitates a late-term abortion. Late-term abortion requires that the cervix be prepared 24 to 48 hours in advance with laminaria. Laminaria is a type of sterilized seaweed that absorbs water over 8 to 12 hours and swells to several times its original diameter. Once removed, metal dilators can be used to further open the cervix as needed. Once the cervix has been stretched open, the suction tube is placed inside. A baby at 20 weeks gestation is as big as the length of my hand, from head to rump, not counting the legs. The suction machine is turned on, and pale yellow amniotic fluid surrounding the baby is suctioned out through the catheters. With babies this big, They don't fit through catheters this size. The baby's bones and skull are too strong to be torn apart by suction alone. This is a Sofer clamp. A Sofer clamp is made of stainless steel. It's about 13 inches long. The business end is about 2.5 inches long and 1/2 inch wide, and there are rows of sharp teeth. This is a grasping instrument. When it gets a hold of something, it does not let go. The abortionist uses this clamp to grasp an arm or leg. Once he has a firm grip, the abortionist pulls hard in order to tear the limb from the baby's body. One by one, the rest of the limbs are removed, along with the intestines, the spine, and the heart and lungs. Usually the most difficult part of the procedure is extracting the baby's head, which is about the size of a large plum at 20 weeks. The head is grasped and crushed. The abortionist knows he has crushed the skull when a white substance comes out of the cervix. This was the baby's brains. The abortionist then removes skull pieces. He removes the placenta and any leftover parts of the baby with a curette, scraping the lining of the uterus for any remaining tissue. The abortionist then collects the baby parts and reassembles them to make sure that there are 2 arms, 2 legs, and all the pieces. Once all the parts have been accounted for, the abortion is complete. For the woman, this procedure carries a significant risk of major complications, including perforation or laceration of the uterus or cervix, with possible damage to the bowel, bladder, and other maternal organs. Infection and hemorrhage can also occur, which can even lead to death. Future pregnancies are also at greater risk for loss or premature delivery due to abortion-related trauma and injury to the cervix.
Most abortions are under the guise of compassion. On who? On who? You're killing a baby, you're tearing him to pieces. You're talking about compassion? On who? Partial birth abortion is to kill a baby in the act of being born. And they fight for it. What are you doing? You see, we're all mixed up today. That's why I'm saying, please, know yourself and know the truth. And use it wisely.
It's my body, my choice. It's my body, my choice. Overturn, girls. Hell no. My body, my choice. I am who I say I am. I do what I say I can do because I have a choice. I have a choice. I have a choice. I have a choice.
I know this. I'm glad to be in the house of the Lord.
They shouted, hoping this time they'll be heard. U.S. women have had legal access to abortion since the landmark 1973 Roe v. Wade Supreme Court ruling. But in recent years and months, conservative states have passed laws restricting abortion. The protest was held 2 days before the Supreme Court examines a restrictive Mississippi law. The court has already refused to block a Texas bill that bans abortions after 6 weeks of pregnancy.
You don't believe that? No, I can prove it, okay? You don't believe that. I do believe that. Can you go out into the street right now and punch somebody in the face?
Not unless they punch me first.
Why? Because you can't do anything you want with your body.
I'm just
you
saying I eat kids for breakfast.
Can a man use his bodily autonomy to sexually assault a woman?
Yeah, he can.
He shouldn't. Right, he shouldn't have the right. And women should not have the right to murder babies.
Really?
That's it. You don't believe in my body, my choice.
No, can I ask you a quick question?
Your right ends when another human being begins.
No, I'm pro-life.
Your right ends.
Okay, so if you were raped and you got pregnant with me,
I do just want to ask you.
Bye, all. He said no.
My choice! My choice! My choice! My choice! My choice! My choice!